Hey, crew. It's Pitt, and I'm back with a little more discernment. Today, we're going to be diving back into the book of Jasher. We'll be reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there are several playlists linked in the box down below so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. If you find value in what I am doing over here, I ask that you do all of the wonderful things down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment, whether you agree or disagree with anything that is said. Put it in the box, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you truly find value, hit me with that super chat or super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of one of my books. The first one, A Series of Unconventional Beliefs, is my story of how I learned to use the Holy Spirit to heal myself and how you can align yourself to do so as well. The second one, The Green Stone, is my work on spiritual alchemy, what I consider to be the completion of Carl Jung's Mysterium Conjunctionis and his work with the archetypes. I have completely reworked the MBTI system. The third one is going to be the most relevant to today. It is A House Built Upon Shifting Sands, a biblical deconstruction of the Bible using the Bible to deconstruct the Bible. It is the culmination of 161 hours of me reading through the Bible live on camera. And it is 43 points of contention with the Bible using the Bible primarily. There are outside sources. Um, these books are available for purchase in the box down below, as well as you can listen to me read them for free here on YouTube through the playlist of the appropriate name. I do that so people can know exactly where I stand on these things and my arguments behind them freely. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue the exploration of Jasher with chapter 20. Hey, Carnal, what's going on, brother? All right. At that time, Abraham journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of the Philistines. Now, as a refresher, right, we just finished up with 19, and 19 was Lot and the Sodom and Gomorrah destruction. And he dwelt in Gerar, and it was in the 25th year of Abraham's being in the land of Canaan, and the 100th year in the life of Abraham, that he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarah, his wife, Say thou art my sister to anyone that shall ask thee, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. This is a repeat, right? We have already seen this happen once. This happens twice. It's also repeated later on in the Genesis narrative by who is it? It's not Joseph. I forget who it is. It's repeated again. All right, let's do it. And as Abraham was dwelling in the lands of the Philistines, the servants of Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly beautiful. And they asked Abram concerning her, and he said, She is my sister, and which is not a lie according to Genesis. And the servants of Abimelech went to Abimelech, saying, A man from the land of Canaan is come to dwell in the land, and he has a sister that is exceedingly fair. And Abimelech heard the words of his servant who praised Sarah to him, and Abimelech sent his officers, and they brought Sarah to the king. And Sarah came to the house of Abimelech, and the king saw that Sarah was beautiful, and she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her and said to her, What is that man to thee, with whom thou didst come to our land? And Sarah answered and said, He is my brother, and we came from the land of Canaan, to dwell wherever we could find a place. And Abimelech said to Sarah, Behold, my land is before thee. Place thy brother in any part of this land that pleases thee, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is thy brother. That is that golden snatch. Bro, I'm just saying, like, you gonna let the brother of her pick whatever spot he wants, right? That is the best punani ever. And you ain't even had it yet. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, and Abraham came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, Behold, I have given orders that thou shalt be honored, as thou desirest, on account of thy sister Sarah. And Abraham went forth from the king, and the king's present followed him. I wonder if Abraham really wanted a chair set up in the room. And he dreamed that an angel of the Lord came to him with a drawn sword in his hand, and the angel stood over Abimelech and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified in his dream and said to the angel, in what have I sinned against thee, that thou comest to slay me with thy sword? And the angel answered and said to Abimelech, behold, thou diest on account of the woman with which thou didst yesternight come to thy house. For she is a married woman and the wife of Abraham who came to thy house. Now therefore return that man to his wife, for she is his wife. And shouldst thou not return her, know that thou wilt surely die, thou and all belonging to thee. Well, that's pretty clear. At least the angel's talking to the person who is responsible this time, right? He's not talking to some donkey. He's not relaying the message through a slap with the wind. He's actually telling you it's in your dreams, but whatever. You have a dream, don't sleep with this woman. If you have a dream, don't sleep with this woman. Listen to that, whether or not there is an angel present. Snips of the ancient world. Yes, yes, indeed. That is exactly what we are seeing. And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines, and the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, and he smote the inhabitants of the land with the sword. Yea, it continued to smite them. A figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, he smote the inhabitants. And the angel of the Lord smote the whole land of the Philistines on that night, and there was a great confusion on that night and on the following morning. And every wound was closed, and all had their issues. And the hand of the Lord was upon them on account of Sarah, wife of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. Well, that is definitely something, right? If that happens, that is definitely going to cause some notice. Every woman in the whole land loses her capacity to have children, loses the children that they have, and immediately begins their monthly issue. That is definitely noteworthy. The angel of the Lord smiting the whole land of the Philistines on that night, that's going to be a problem, right? Because if that is true, then everybody's dead. He smote them all. They are all dead. The angel of the Lord smote the whole land of the Philistines on that night. Well, was he just smacking them around a little bit? Right? Was it an earthquake and it was mistaken for being smacking around a little bit? Like great confusion in the night. Well, there would be great confusion, but like smite is a big thing, right? That is God saying kaput. That's what he did to Sodom and Gomorrah. Kaput. Then there's either survivors or there's not. That even seems to be pedestalizing the female, which would be a form of idol worship, right? Yes, yes, indeed it would. You should not worship anything, male, female, graven, engraven, not graven, carved, formed, whatever. Like if it lives, don't worship it. And it is really that simple. If you can see it, it's not worthy of worship. The thing that created it, overall, that's worthy of worship. Like the one who set all of the protons in motion, that's worthy of worship. But if you can see it, it's part of the creation. It's not the creator. And in the morning, Abimelech rose with terror and confusion and with a great dread. And he sent and had his servants called in, and he related his dream to them. And the people were greatly afraid. Now, okay, so this happened while he was having the dream. And then in the morning, he rises with terror and has his servants called in because they weren't smitten and related his dream to them. And the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing amongst the servants of the king answered the king, saying, O sovereign king, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her husband, for the like happened to the king of Egypt when this man came to Egypt. Now we got an excuse for the thing that happened in Genesis, right? Like this happened twice in Genesis without all of this extra stuff. Like parts of this is from Genesis, absolutely, but yeah, this part right here, right? This is not. This is the apology part of this part. And he said concerning his wife, she is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he comes to dwell up in the land in which he is a stranger. Yeah, there goes that simp theory again, right? And Pharaoh sent and took this woman for a wife, and the Lord brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her husband. Now, therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened yesternight to the whole land. For there was a very great consternation and great pain and lamentation. And we know that it was on account of the woman which thou didst take. And the whole land knows that. Now, therefore, restore this woman to her husband, lest it should befall us as it did the Pharaoh king of Egypt and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called, and had Sarah called for. And she came before him, and he had Abram called for, and he came before him, probably while watching. And Abimelech said to them, what is this work you have been doing in saying you are brother and sister? And I took this woman for a wife. Let's see if it stays consistent. And Abraham said, because I thought I should suffer death on account of my wife. And Abimelech took flocks and herds and men servants and maidservants, and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abraham and had Sarah return to him. I don't blame him, like he's running a hell of a scam. And Abimelech said to Abraham, behold, the whole land is before thee, dwell in it wherever thou shalt choose. Didn't he already choose a spot like he was supposed to? And Abraham and Sarah, his wife, went forth from the king's presence with honor and respect, and they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. Is that near Hebron? I don't know. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain through the plague which the angel had inflicted upon them the whole night, according to on account of Sarah. Now that is different. That is not internal consistency, right? That is directly different than what you said before. You said smote. Smote means smite, and smite is a very specific thing. You didn't say plague. You didn't say upset stomach. You didn't say any of those things. And so this is a different accounting of the same thing, which is internally inconsistent. The only reason that it really matters. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, pray now for thy servants to the Lord thy God, that he may put away this mortality from us. And Abraham prayed on account of Abimelech and his subjects, and the Lord heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Abimelech and all his subjects. Yeah, okay. What we got? Okay. Jasher, chapter 21. And it was at that time, at the end of a year and 4 months of Abraham's dwelling in the land of the Philistines in Gerar, that God visited Sarah, and the Lord remembered her. And she conceived and bare a son to Abraham. It is so funny how often God forgets, right? God, the Almighty Creator of all things, just forgets this promise that He made, right? Even to an entire people, He has to be reminded of it several times, right? He forgets, right? He doesn't have the capacity to understand that they could rebel, that they could sin, that they could choose to know the right and wrong, right? He doesn't have the capacity to understand that. He doesn't understand where they are. He's like, he walks into the garden. He's like, where are you? And they were hiding from him because you can do that. You can hide from God, the creator of all things. He doesn't know where you are, right? And so they hide from God there. And then when he's looking for Abel, he's like, where's your brother? He doesn't know. He doesn't know already that there's been a murder. He has to discover that through the scent of the ground. I wonder why he was keyed into that scent. That's a rabbit hole, right? And so there's a whole lot of stuff here. And to unpack all of it is just so much. That's why we do this in pieces. So, but he remembers her. Now he remembers her. It takes a long time for him to remember her. I guess it's because the days and they're not counted the same, right? One day is as 1,000 years. She's lucky he remembered her at all. It could be tomorrow to him, and she's been dead for 900. Maybe he was just testing them to see if they would lie to him. Yeah. Because God needs a test to know if you're faithful and true. And Abraham called the name of the son which was born to him, which Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac at 8 days old, as God had commanded Abraham to do unto his seed after him. And Abraham was 100, and Sarah 90 years old, when Isaac was born to them. And the child grew up, and he was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast upon the day that Isaac was weaned. Sorry. And Shem and Eber and all the great people of the land, and Abimelech, king of the Philistines, and his servants, and Phicol, the captain of his host, came to eat and drink and rejoice at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of his son Isaac's being weaned. Also, Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor his brother came from Haran, they and all belonging to them, and they greatly rejoiced on hearing that a son had been born to Sarah. And they came to Abraham, and they ate and drank at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of Isaac's being weaned. And Terah and Nahor rejoiced with Abraham, and they remained with him many days in the land of the Philistines. At that time, Serug, the son of Ru, died in the first year of the birth of the son, Isaac, the son of Abraham. Uh, it's also like God promised this land to Abraham and his progeny. Why is he dependent upon these kings to give him stuff? Right? Why is he dependent upon these kings to provide that which God has promised? Right? God's not capable of just providing him this land, guessing that any of it was empty, which is a guess, right? It talks about there being peoples in the land. It's fully expected that they were making use of the land. Uh, but he promises them this peace, and it's around Hebron, right? According to the narrative, like it gets expanded into the entirety, but the main chunk of it is around Hebron, not even Jerusalem, Hebron. Like, why is it dependent upon him deceiving these kings for God to be able to fulfill the promise of giving him some land? Like, and then he's got to buy the burial spot in Hebron. Like, why is God reliant upon men to speak for him? That is the truth. Yeah, people do ask. Uh, I ask questions I know the answers to all the time. That's true, right? But we're not God. Like, we don't have to do that. Why do we not see angels approaching world leaders as much in these modern times, if any of this is true? Right? Like, even considering some of not even considering our atrocities, right? We'll leave aside Trail of Tears and stuff like that. Like, there's live action Holocaust happening. How is it that no angel appeared to Hitler? Right? How is it no angels are appearing to Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh? Like, how is it that nobody is appearing to Kim Jong Un? Like, how is it that there's no angels intervening in these things where actual atrocities are literally occurring? If that is the will of God, I am on board with that understanding as well. Like, I've been visited by an angel, right? It was a very brief encounter, and I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't altered by substances. I was working, but I wasn't exhausted. And the angel came, and it was like a figure that I could see, but I couldn't really make out any features. It was beautiful, right? I felt great. Said, "You're going to spread the word of God." At that point in time, I was an atheist, and it just went away, right? A practicing pagan atheist at best, and they went away. That was the entirety of the interaction, right? There was no back and forth conversations, no names, no nothing. It was just that. And it could have been a hallucination. I fully understand that. But to me, it was a real experience. And so I believe that these things are real. I don't believe that they have played such a part as they have been given credit. Ah, maybe they come in a time of a need when you need to hear something, but at that point in time, like you got to definitely pick some better points in time for the message to come. Oh, so yeah, why do we not see that happening now? Right? If there was direct divine intervention, which, like, again, I've been healed through what I consider to be divine intervention, but I manipulated the energies. I asked God for healing, and I got told, "No, you do it yourself. Here's how." And that's what I did, and that's why I have been healed. And so for me, it is miraculous, but it's not like God said, "Poof, here you go." It was not instantaneous. It required effort upon my part, relying upon the intuition of those voices, right? Do this, don't do that, but relying upon making the correct choice on that and taking action upon that and moving the energies. Like, all of that to me was intrinsically important to the healing process. And there was nothing about that, about God necessarily choosing me because I was moral or upright or, the shining example of anything at all. And so I feel like that was something that I was meant to relay. That's why I've got the first book, the series of unconventional beliefs, and the second book. Uh, so I'm not completely dismissing, sorry, the possibility of these things at all. I do judge the fruit of these things, right? If it's telling you to kill your kid, it's probably not a good thing, right? If another entity has to intervene, well, one of those was good, one of those was not. And you can make your decisions about which one you want to follow, right? I'm not following the one that wants you to kill your kid in any instance whatsoever. Um, yeah. And God does help those who help themselves. Why are there so many different ideologies if there's only one God? Because people need a lot, right? That's really why, because people need to be able to wrap their experience into the divine, into a way like you can fully say that I do that about me in my book, right? I don't deny my own self in these things, but people need to wrap their beliefs into their experience, right? I have the experience where I have been healed, but that was kind of the byproduct coming out of the process of what I do here and how I got here. And it gets really a wild thing the way that happened. And so these people over here had the experiences of this. They need their ideology to fit that. And then these have this whole nother one. And so like it's like the prohibition craze, right? People deciding all of a sudden that it was absolutely immoral for anyone to drink any alcohol whatsoever and imposing that upon other people. It just doesn't work on a grand scale. Like you can do that for yourself. Like there are still dry counties. I mean, there are still places that you can't do this thing. And you can do that on a small scale, but the larger the scale gets, the less it's going to fit inside the same box. And so the ideologies are really wrapped up into what you individually as a community need for your thing. Uh, great question. So, like, great questions. All right. But yeah, like if you don't put investment into it, if you are not taking action, God's not going to do anything. God's ambivalent at best. Like I say, God is good all of the time, but he's ambivalent, right? If you are creating into your life destruction, he's not going to interfere in that. He's going to allow you to make those free will choices. And so, like, it's really up to you which direction you want to walk. And if you're not taking steps towards the positive, you're entropying towards the negative. And all the days of Sarug were 239 years, and he died. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, was grown up in those days. He was 14 years old when Sarah bare Isaac to Abraham. And God was with Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and he grew up and he learned to use a bow and become an archer. And when Isaac was 5 years old, he was sitting with Ishmael at the door of the tent. And Ishmael came to Isaac and seated himself opposite to him, and he took the bow and drew it and put the arrow in it, and he intended to slay Isaac. And Sarah saw the act which Ishmael desired to do to her son Isaac, and it grieved her exceedingly on account of her son. And she sent for Abraham and said to him, Cast out this bondswoman and her son, for her son shall not be heir with my son. For thus did he seek to do unto him this day. There's no greed wrapped up in that, right? Like we just have to take her word that she saw this. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarah, and he rose up early in the morning and he took 12 loaves. I mean, she does have that golden panani, though. Took 12 loaves and a bottle of water, which he gave to Hagar, and sent her away with her son. And Hagar went with her son to the wilderness. Took 12 loaves and a bottle of water. Carry your ass. It ain't gonna last very long, bro. It ain't gonna last very long. And like through the desert, right? The wilderness is the desert here. And they dwelt in the wilderness of Paran with the inhabitants of the wilderness. And Ishmael was an archer, and he dwelt in the wilderness a long time. Every culture seems to have their own version, though the longer persisting cultures like China, Mongolia, Japan have records dating back way before the supposed era of Abraham, right? Yes. Yes. There are there are records in the area way older than Abraham is supposed to have been. Like the Gobekli Tepe complex, right? That is not just the single site, but like there's a multitude of sites scattered all across Turkey, which is the land of Gog and Magog. Like all of these sites are scattered all over the place, and they've discovered writing, like intentional writing, not even symbology, for the constellations, which the T post are probably are. But they found a stele which had an inscription, which is more than likely being used to impress seals, which is intentional writing as opposed to just symbology. And there's a reason to believe that that's 35,000 years old, right? That is significantly older than attributed to Adam and Eve at all. Now, even if they are off by half, that is still twice as old as Adam and Eve. So that story, like it already doesn't hold water as a literal, right? It's fine as an allegory if you interpret it in the right way, but it doesn't hold water as a literal period. That just puts proof into that. And Dan from Debunking, Dan Richards over at Debunking, just did 2 videos on astrology. Excellent videos. I highly recommend anyone check them out. And it got into that. And that's a really good one. Why is there not more overlap between different cultures that speak of the same God? Yeah, and again, that gets back into the what you need at your place, because even in the Bible, it's not the same, right? You got this northern and southern kingdoms that are worshiping the same God. They're one unified country, theocratic republic. That's all I can say, at best. And there's widely disparate applications of that, right? You have the Yahweh of the north and Yahweh of the south differentiated. One of them has a wife, one of them doesn't. The way that they accept sacrifices are different. The locations of the actual sacrificial sites are differently located, right? One's in a valley, one's on a hill. Like different applications entirely of what is supposed to be the exact same religion. And so that is another one of those very regional things. My God is better than yours. Uh, yeah, very familiar with the tepe. Those bas relief carvings and the number of them they have found growing, penetrating radar. Yes, it is mind blowing. Uncharted X is absolutely a great channel for that too. Absolutely. Uh, I absolutely recommend either one of them. They are actually on the ground, right? It is not even doing well. Dan does some on the ground, but not as much. But like Uncharted X is actually out there taking pictures himself, making measurements himself. And so I highly recommend anyone who is actually doing the experimental, right? Getting out there and experimenting with the actual physicality of existence. I highly recommend listening to them, whether you believe their conclusions or not. At least know what the physical evidence says. And so I absolutely believe do that. Uh, Brother of the Serpent and Randall Carlson are both linked on my channel as recommended channels. Like I got a list of like 6 or 7. Randall Carlson's on there, Brothers of the Serpent's on there. I don't have Uncharted X on there. I've got Gil Broussard for the Nibiru stuff. If you were looking into Planet X Nibiru at all, Gil Broussard has done the legwork. He really has. Now, whether his conclusions bear out, that is a whole different argument, but he has really gone back into the records and pulled out the evidence and shows it to you, as opposed to some other sources that we could talk about. Uh, yeah. Like I recommend Brothers of the Serpent all the time to people because there is such a wide disparate understanding, right? They talk about everything from the pyramids to aliens and uh the actual tepe sites. Like they've been on the ground, they've done all the work themselves, not all the work themselves, but they are doing the work themselves. And so I definitely like I recommend them all the time. I'm part of the Discord, even though I am a horrible Discordian, right? I forget that it exists for months at a time, but I'm part of their Discord. I'm part of the Timcast Discord. Like there's very few groups that I associate with myself with, but Brothers of the Serpent is one of them. Like the video game, like you can't see it, but I got it on the wall right here. The Brother of the Serpents is one of the factions in the thing, and I've got the brothers represented, and Candle Rarlson is one of the guides, and like it's involved in the thing that I'm building. Uh, but yeah, I recommend highly all of them, all of them. They're actually like they look at it in the same way that I do, right? Some of this stuff is fantastical, but maybe there is something behind it. And he and his mother afterward went to the land of Egypt, and they dwelt there. And Hagar took a wife for her son from Egypt, and her name was Meribah. And the wife of Ishmael conceived and bare 4 sons and 2 daughters. And Ishmael and his mother and his wife and children afterwards went and returned to the wilderness. And they made themselves tents in the wilderness in which they dwelt. And they continued to travel and then to rest monthly and yearly. And God gave Ishmael flocks and herds and tents on account of Abraham his father. And the man increased in cattle. And Ishmael dwelt in the desert and in tents, traveling and resting for a long time, and he did not see the face of his father. And in some time after, Abraham said to Sarah his wife, I will go and see my son Ishmael, for I have a desire to see him, for I have not seen him for a long time. Why, you shouldn't have banished him for nothing then. And Abraham rode upon one of his camels to the wilderness to seek his son Ishmael, for he heard that he was dwelling in a tent in the wilderness with all belonging to him. And Abraham went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and found the wife of Ishmael sitting in the tent with her children. And Ishmael, her husband, and his mother were not with him. And Abraham asked the wife of Ishmael, saying, Where has Ishmael gone? And she said, He has gone to the field to hunt. And Abraham was still mounted upon the camel, for he would not get off to the ground, as he had sworn to his wife Sarah that he would not get off from the camel. She was worried, huh? She was worried. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, My daughter, give me a little water that I may drink, for I am fatigued from the journey. And Ishmael's wife answered and said to Abraham, We have neither water nor bread. And she continued sitting in the tent and did not notice Abraham, neither did she ask him who he was. But she was beating her children in the tent, and she was cursing them, and also cursed her husband Ishmael, and reproached him. And Abraham heard the words of Ishmael's wife to her children, and he was very angry and displeased. And Abraham called to the woman to come out from the tent, and the woman came and stood opposite to Abraham, for Abraham was still mounted upon the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, When thy husband Ishmael returneth home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came hither to seek thee, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing thou wast not here, he spoke unto me and said, When Ishmael thy husband returneth, tell him thus. Did men say, When thou comest home, put away this nail of the tent on which thou hast placed here, and place another nail in its stead. And Abraham finished his instructions to the woman, and turned and went off to the camel homeward. And after that, Ishmael came home from the chase, he and his mother. And he took his mom hunting with him. I mean, I don't blame him. This woman appears to be very unpleasant. And returned to the tent, and his wife spoke these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came to seek thee, and thus it was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing thou wast not at home, he said to me, When thy husband come home, tell him, Thus saith the old man, Put away the nail of the tent which thou hast placed here, and place another nail in its stead. Like, he's telling him to get another wife, right? He's telling you put aside your wife for this and get a new woman. To the child of the wife that he put away for the pleasure of the first wife, so that the, yeah, right? Take advice from him on what to do. And Ishmael heard the words of his wife, and he knew that it was his father, and that his wife did not honor him. And Ishmael understood his father's words that he had spoken to his wife, and Ishmael hearkened to the voice of his father. And Ishmael cast off that woman, and she went away. And Ishmael afterwards went to the land of Canaan, and he took another wife, and he brought her to his tent, to the place where he then dwelt. Graham Hancock has done a lot of work on these potentialities, and was in fact he and Randall Carlson on JRA that inspired me to get involved in that ancient history exploration. Right? Like, I had the opposite findings, right? Now, What I mean is, most people go through Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, then the Brothers of the Serpent. I found Randall, and then I found Randall and the Brothers of the Serpent like fairly close together. Like they were doing the podcast together, and that's how I found the Brothers of the Serpent. And they are who exposed me to Graham Hancock. So like I didn't have the usual, falling in awe. And there's things about Graham Hancock that I absolutely agree with, and there's things that about him that I don't. Not to pull any particularities out, right? That's not what I'm trying to do here. But uh, he's another one that actually did the legwork. Now, whether you agree with his conclusions or not, he did the work. He went to the places, saw the places, did the work, made the measurements, all of it for himself, not relying upon someone else's testimony. And so he is worthy of listening to at a very minimum. Uh, I do follow Graham Hancock. I do listen to his stuff quite often. Uh, and so, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. He is another very good resource. And at the end of 3 years, Abraham said, I will go again and see Ishmael for my son, for I have not seen him for a long time. And he rode upon his camel and went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and his wife came out of the tent, and she said, He is not here, my lord, for he is gone to hunt in the fields and to feed the camels. And the woman said to Abraham, Turn in, my lord, to the tent and eat a morsel of bread, for thy soul must be wearied on account of the journey. And Abraham said to her, I will not stop, for I am in haste to continue my journey, but give me a little water to drink, for I have thirst. And the woman hastened and ran into the tent and brought out water and bread to Abraham, which she placed before him, and she urged him to eat. And he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted, and he blessed his son Ishmael. And he finished his meal, and he blessed the Lord. And he said to Ishmael's wife, When Ishmael cometh home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came hither and asked after thee, and thou wast not here. And I brought him out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me. When Ishmael thy husband cometh home, say unto him, The nail of the tent which thou hast is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. And Abraham finished commanding the woman, and he rode off to his home to the land of the Philistines. And when Ishmael came to his tent, the wife went forth to meet him with joy and a cheerful heart. And she said to him, An old man came here from the land of the Philistines, and thus was his appearance. And he asked after thee, and thou wast not here. So I brought out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me. When Ishmael thy husband cometh home, say to him, The nail of the tent which thou hast is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. And Ishmael knew that it was his father, and that his wife had honored him, and the Lord blessed Ishmael. Jasher, chapter 22. And Ishmael then rose up and took his wife and his children and his cattle and all belonging to him and journeyed from there, and he went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham related to Ishmael, his son, the transaction with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelled with Abram many days in that land, and Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines a long time. And the days increased and reached 26 years. And after that, Abraham and his servants and all belonging to him went from the land of the Philistines and removed to a great distance. And they came near to Hebron. And they remained there. And the servants of Abraham dug wells of water. And Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. And the servants of Abimelech, king of the Philistines, heard the report that Abraham's servants had dug wells of water on the borders of the land. And they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed them of the great well which they had dug. And Abimelech, king of the Philistines, heard of this affair, and he with Phicol, the captain of his host, and 20 of his men came to Abraham. And Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants. And Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, As the Lord liveth, who created the whole earth, I did not hear of the act which my servants did until this day. And Abraham took 7 ewe lambs and gave them to Abimelech, saying, Take these, I pray thee, from my hands, that it be a testimony for me that I dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds in abundance. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well. Therefore he called that well Beersheba, for there they both swore concerning it. And they both made a covenant to Beersheba. And Abimelech rode up with Phicol, the captain of his host, and all of his men. And they returned to the land of the Philistines, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba. And he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba, and he made it to 4 gates facing the 4 sides of the earth, and he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he entered any gate which was in his road, and he remained there and ate and drank and satisfied himself and then departed. I'm calling bullshit. Not that it can happen, but well, the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men that passed and repassed, who came daily to eat and drink in the house of Abraham. And any man who had hunger and came into Abraham's house, Abraham would give him his bread that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. And anyone that came naked to his house, he would clothe with garments that he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and made known to him the Lord who had created him in the earth. This did Abraham all his life. Yeah, that is not, hey, y'all take this example and run with it. That's not what that is at all. And Abraham and his children, and all belonging to him, dwelt in Beersheba, and he pitched his tent as far as Hebron. And Abraham's brother Nahor and his father and all belonging to them dwelt in Haran, but they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And children were born to Nahor, which Milcah, the daughter of Haran, and sister to Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare to him. And these are the names of those that were born to him: Uz, Buz, Kemuel, Kesed, Kazo, Pildash, Tilath, and Bethuel, bearing 8 sons. These are the children of Milcah, which she bare to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And Nahor had a concubine, and her name was Ruma. And she also bare to Nahor Zabak, Gashak, Tekash, and Makah, being 4 sons. And the children that were born to Nahor were 12 sons besides his daughters, and they had also children born to them in Haran. And the children of Uz, the firstborn of Nahor, were Abi, Kareth, Gadin, Malus, and Deborah, their sister. Why give us a female in this one and not in the other one? We excluded the females in the other one, right? Besides his daughters means that it's not important enough to include. I guess Deborah is an important enough personage that you had to include her in your history. And the sons of Buz were Barakel, Namath, Shiva, you say, and Madanu. And the sons of Kemuel were Aram and Rekab. And the sons of Kesed were Anamelech, Mishai, Benan, and Yiphi. And the sons of Kazo were Pildash, Mikai, and Ophir. The sons of Pildash were Arud, Kamun, Mered, and Moloch. And the sons of Tildaf were Mashan, Kushan, and Mutzi. Moloch, you say. And the children of Bethuel were Sakar, Laban, and their sister Rebekah. So we have two of them had, or 2 of the children that are listed out of all of them are female so far. And, all right, let's see. Do we know if they marked the passage of a year accurately back then? It is reasonable to assume that they did. It is quite reasonable, especially in light of the archaeological evidence from Göbekli Tepe, right? There is, besides that, in the North American continent, there are star maps or moon maps where they have observation points like dishes in the ground where they set this one particular stone, and then they would trace where the moon was. And they had the correct divisions and the phases and cycles all accurately represented. And so it is perfectly reasonable to assume at this period of time that they would have been able to track a year accurately. There is no reason to assume that they would use any other, like they would use a day, absolutely, when the sun goes out and it comes back up. That's significant. They would use a month because when the moon transitions, it is significant. And they would use a year because when the year transitions, it is significant. More than likely, spring would be the beginning of the year, not the middle of winter or the very beginning of winter. Uh, I am sure that the people who put that particular thing into place had a reason for doing so, and I am sure that that was control. Uh, Almost every civilization has used spring as the measure, right? New life springing forth from the earth is the new year. And so it is very reasonable to assume that they would have had an accurate calendar. Now, whether that was accurately represented for leap years and things like that, that's up for debate. But there is evidence to suggest that they did know that as well. Uh, it's causing me like this evidence that I am being presented with is actually causing me to change some of my other understandings. So um, nothing spiritual, but all of the physical stuff, like the 12,000 year disaster cycle, in light of some of the archaeological evidence that I discovered doing the Bible research for the house built upon shifting sands. There's a lot there that, like, the archaeological evidence doesn't bear out that particular cycle in the way that it is explained that I understood it. And so it's kind of thrown some kinks into my understanding for that in particular. Uh, these people spend a lot of time writing down their daily activities, even though modern versions of history do not attribute written language to them, at least not broadly learned written language. Right. And that is one of the problems with archaeology, right? Um, Even outside of, in light of the recent Gobekli Tepe stuff, like even the 12,000 year ago stuff, we do have evidence of sophisticated writings, right? The hieroglyphs is a form of sophisticated writing. The representative calendar of the Native Americans in over here, uh, that is significant intentional writing for even symbolical purposes is still writing. And so that they won't admit that that is a possibility, that they had the capacity to write, and the fact that those particular languages, the Sumerian and the Egyptian in particular, being the oldest that we have evidence of that is accepted, kind of sprang up fully fleshed, right? That suggests that there is more to the story, whether or not it plays out how anybody describes it. There's probably a little bit more to that story, right? If all of this pops up and it's like bam overnight, that suggests that maybe there is some commonality to it. Uh, Now, the spread of our agriculture is fairly traceable, right? There are a couple of pockets where it seems to have spontaneously at the same time, and then you can track how it moved. Some of the other stuff less, like the writing, like it kind of just poof, there it is. But then the recent stuff with Gobekli Tepe may shed some light on that, right? If that was existent writing 36,000 years ago, that definitely threw some kinks in some things. Um, the equinoxes and the yugas, yeah. Like the yuga is just a cycle, right? It's just like they have the different types of yugas, and they have like the lesser yuga, which would be a year, and the greater yugas, which is probably 10 or 15 or 20 or however their particular counting system did it. Oh, yeah. And the writing about their daily activities, right? We're seeing a lot of stuff, not necessarily here as much in this particular one today, but often it's describing things that wouldn't be described unless it was part of a narrative, right? Unless you were trying to show, hey, look, we're just like you. There's no reason to talk about some of the things, and I'll try to remember and point them out as we go through. Uh, I dismiss them so easily, right? Like there is no reason to record that you put on your coat, right? Or the some of the other stuff. And it's just like, why would you even record these things? It's like for the same reason that you don't see in fiction a whole lot of I went to the bathroom. Right? There's no reason to record that. Everybody assumes that you're going to do that. There's no reason to put it into the narrative. And particularly, we're talking about you're writing a story, right? This is written. You got limited space, right? Space is a commodity. It's not like me sitting here talking to the internet where it's infinite capacity to collect what I do, right? You're talking about tablets. You're talking about scrolls, and these things are finite resources that it takes effort to make, and so therefore they are valuable intrinsically. You're not going to waste space on things that you don't need to. That's why we don't have records of a lot of stuff that would be really nice to have records of the daily life of various peoples because they didn't record it. The best we get for most of those things is frescoes and, artwork depicting the things that they did. Not really a whole lot of writing talking about planting and harvesting and the other things that it would be kind of interesting to see how they did it then. You don't really see that. Like, you don't see a whole lot of the narrative talking about how to make boots. Everybody made boots. I mean, if you up until the point where there were individual boot makers and specialization, you don't see it described, right? You don't see somebody talking about the process of making boots. And it would be interesting to know how they did that. Uh, and so when you see that included, especially when we're talking about antiquity, it is a time thing, right? If they're including it is relevant to the story. And if it's relevant to the story that you know these small details, it's so that you'll believe it. These are the families of the children of Nahor that were born to them in Haran, and Aram, the son of Kemuel, and Rechab, his brother, went away from Haran, and they found a valley in the land by the river Euphrates. And they built a city there, and they called the name of the city after the name Pethor, the son of Aram, and that is Aram Naharayim to this day. And the children of Chesed also went to dwell where they could find a place, and they went and found a valley opposite to the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they there built themselves a city, and they called the name at the city Chesed after the name of their father, that is the land Casdim, unto this day. And the Casdim dwelt in the land, and they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. And Terah, father of Nahor and Abraham, went and took another wife in his old age, and her name was Pelilah. And she conceived and bare him a son, and he called his name Zoba. And Terah lived 25 years after he begat Zoba, and Terah died in that year, and that is in the 35th year of the birth of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried at Haran. And Zoba, the son of Terah, lived 30 years, and he begat Aram, Achlis, and Merich. And Aram, son of Zoba, son of Terah, had 3 wives, and he begat 12 sons and 3 daughters. And the Lord gave to Aram, the son of Zoba, riches and possessions and abundance of cattle and flocks and herds, and the man increased greatly. And Aram, the son of Zoba, and his brother and all his household journeyed from Haran, and they went to dwell where they could find a place, for their property was too great to remain in the Haran, for they could not stop in Haran together with their brethren, the children of Nahor. And Aram, the son of Zoba, went with his brethren, and they found a valley at a distance towards the eastern country, and they dwelt there. And they also built a city there, and they called the name thereof Aram, after the name of their eldest brother, that is, Aram Zoba, to this day. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was growing up in those days, and Abraham, his father, taught him the way of the Lord, to know the Lord, and the Lord was with him. And when Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael, his brother, was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when the Lord spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of the Lord which he spoke to my father, and I gave my soul unto the Lord, and I did not transgress his word which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, Why dost thou boast to me about this, and about a little bit of thy flesh which thou didst take from thy body, concerning which the Lord commanded thee? As the Lord liveth, the God of my father Abraham, if the Lord should say unto my father, Take now thy son Isaac and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain, but I would joyfully accede to it. Well, there's some justification for Genesis. Yes, indeed. And the Lord heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of the Lord, and they thought to try Abraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of God came and placed themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with the sons of God before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and forth in the earth, and from walking up and down it. And the Lord said to Satan, What is thy word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered the Lord and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve thee, and remember thee when they require anything from thee. And when thou givest them thing which they require from thee, they sit at their ease, and forsake thee, and remember thee no more. Hast thou seen Abraham, the son of Terah, who at first had no children? And he served thee, and erected altars to thee wherever he came. And he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed thy name continually to all the children of the earth. Now that his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken thee. He has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, and the Lord he has forgotten. For amidst all that he had done, he brought thee no offering, neither burnt offering nor peace offering, neither ox, lamb, nor goat, of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned, even from the time of his son's birth till now, being 37 years. He built no altar before thee, nor brought any offering to thee. Like he had to tell God that it was 37 years old, right? He had to inform God that this man was 37. Hey, he's not 36, he's not 38, he's 37. Don't forget. Nor brought any offerings to thee. And God didn't know that either. For he saw that thou didst give what he requested before thee, and he therefore forsook thee. And the Lord said to Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Abraham? For there is none like him upon the earth, a perfect and upright man before me, one that feareth God and avoideth evil. That is definitely up for debate. See the cuck chair conversation. And as I live, were I to say unto him, Bring up Isaac thy son before me, he would not withhold him from me. Much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flocks or herds. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Speak then now unto Abraham as thou hast said, and thou wilt see whether he will not this day transgress and cast aside thy words. Right. So there's a couple of problems here, right? The one of those was this is somebody co-equal to God, right? He is able to walk in freely. He's not limited to some pit burning him eternally with sulfur and brimstone. He hasn't been cast out of the heavens. He's not cursed to walk the earth. He walks up to the throne room freely, and we see that happen somewhere else, right? Or if you're familiar with the book of Job, this is directly from the book of Job, right? Have you considered my servant Job? For there is none like him upon the earth, a perfect and upright man before me, one that feareth God and avoideth evil. Word for word, Job. Right? And so this is obviously a recasting of Abraham as Job. There is no reason to do so. That is not in the Genesis narrative at all. But here you have Satan as the co equal to God. He gets to walk into the throne room and he gives God information that God doesn't have. Right? God doesn't know that Abraham's 37. God doesn't know that there was no sacrifice given, either sin offering or peace offering, even though those are not a thing for another couple thousand years. And so there's a multitude of problems, but the main one I take contention with is the co equal to God. Satan is not co equal to God. There is a voice of the accuser, and that is part of God. I'll grant that with my alchemical understanding, right? You have the voice of temptation, you have the voice of stasis, right? One is keeping you the same, one is asking you to change, and they change polarities, right? Sometimes the change is good, and sometimes the change is bad. Sometimes staying the same is good, sometimes staying the same is bad. The polarities change, but the change agent doesn't. One is trying to change you, one is not. You hear them say things, right? It's you should do this, and you either should or you should not, and you already know, right? You should do this, and you're like, no, I shouldn't. You already know what it is. You know what the right choice should be, but you hear the voice telling you, tempting you not to do it. That is the voice of Satan. That is the voice of temptation, but it's not a co equal to God. Both of those are just facets of God, just like the creation is just a facet of God. We don't understand all of the facets. We don't even see them all. And so I have a problem with anyone being a co equal to the creator of the creation. Period. The end. There was none. There has been no entity that was able to go and give the creator of all things new information that he didn't have at any point. whatsoever. I don't care which part of the narrative it's in. Didn't happen, right? If he's coming down and he's looking for a lost guy, he didn't need to do that. He already knew. You can make the argument that he's seeing that they would lie, but he already knew that too. And that's not explicit in the text. And so layers upon layers of problems, right? To limit the creator into the creation, that's already a problem. Like I say, I mean, I'll do the thing. I mean, before the beginning, there was God, and God was infinite and without form, the void. And God decided to create and limited himself from the infinite into the finite that is creation. That moment of creation when everything, all of the protons were created, was the beginning, but it's a moment held in stasis. And then when God said, I am the light, which is the correct translation of that phrase, he became the light, which is still the same phrase. And the light was good, which is still the same phrase. And he set into motion all of creation, making creation become creation. That is the Logos. And so those are the three concepts that are completely misunderstood by Judaism and Christianity. Completely. Even the Gnostics don't have it right. They don't have the understanding. That is one of the things that I talk about in that book and in the playlist where I read you the book. There is no co equal to God. God, the entirety of the Holy Spirit, all of creation, is God in its entirety, but it is not God in his entirety. God exists outside of the creation. We are a piece of God that is the creation. And so God is not fully functioning or fully fleshed inside of the creation because he can't be, because he is existent outside of it. Anything would be a projection, at best a voice. If somebody is telling you, hey, I am God, they are wrong. They are a representative of God, right? We are all equally a representative of the divine. We are here at the express will of the divine to fulfill a purpose which we may not even know at the will of the divine. That is the argument that I make. You can make another one, that's fine. And so there is no one who is more divine than someone else, and there is no one who is more special than someone else. You making better decisions doesn't make you a better human, right? You are already the best human that you can possibly be. Even if you are out of shape, if you mistreat your temple, you're still the best human. You're just not taking care of the temple. And so I have an immense problem with putting anyone, anything on equal with the creator of all, who is, was, and always shall be the Lord my God. Back to the text. All right, Jasher, chapter 23. At that time, the word of the Lord came to Abraham, and he said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am. And he said to him, Take now thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest, even Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which shall be shown to thee. For thou wilt, for there thou wilt thou see a cloud, and the glory of the Lord. And Abraham said within himself, How shall I separate my son Isaac from Sarah his mother, in order to bring him up for a burnt offering before the Lord? There you go. Start off with deceit. You're not the master of your domain. You are not the patriarch of the household. You cannot just say what you're going to do. Let's be deceitful about it, because that's exactly how it needs to happen for God. And Abraham came into the tent, and he sat before Sarah, his wife, and he spoke these words to her. My son Isaac is grown up, and he has not for some time studied the service of his God. Now, tomorrow, I will go and bring him to Shem and Neba, his son, and there he will learn the ways of the Lord, for they will teach him to know the Lord, as well as to know that when he prayeth continually before the Lord, he will answer him. Therefore, he will know the way of serving the Lord as God. And so God will only answer you if you pray continually, right? If you are not, you can't set your intention and let it ride. You have to pray continually, as well as to know that when he prayeth continually before the Lord, he will answer him. Okay, we have time requirements now. Like, how long is continually? Is there a certain point at which you hit the peak? Is there a point at which it's like, okay, you met the quota? Like, and Sarah said, "Thou hast spoken well. Go, my lord, and do unto him as thou hast said. But remove him not at a great distance from me, neither let him remain there too long, for my soul is bound within his soul." Right? They are in the land of Canaan at this point, right? Like it moved around. It might be in the Philistines. No, they're back in Canaan, right? They're around Hebron. And where is Shem? Like Shem is where? Like he's way up here, right? And like she already knows the distance. Like I assume she knows the distance that it would be, but she's like, don't remove him a great distance from me. And Abraham said unto Sarah, my daughter, let us pray to the Lord our God that he may do good with us. How is she your sister and your daughter? Hmm, that's interesting. And Sarah took her son Isaac, and he abode with her all that night. And she kissed and embraced him, and gave him instructions till morning. And she said to him, "Oh, my son, how can my soul separate itself from thee?" That sounds like that boy mom stuff. And she still kissed him and embraced him. And she gave Abraham instructions concerning him. Bruh. And Abraham and Sarah said to Abraham, "O my lord, I pray thee, take heed of thy son, and place thine eyes over him, for I have no other son nor daughter but him. O forsake him not. If he be hungry, give him bread, and if he be thirsty, give him water to drink, and do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun. Neither let him go by himself on the road, neither force him from whatever he may desire, but do unto him as he may say unto thee." And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night on account of Isaac, and she gave him instructions till morning. Gotta be that golden punani, I'm just saying. And in the morning, Sarah listen to your kid, right? Every time he's hungry, stop. When he wants a drink, stop. When he's got a pee, stop. Every time he has any distraction whatsoever, stop. That is absolutely how a parent should act. In the morning, Sarah selected a very fine and beautiful garment from those garments which she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her. And she dressed Isaac her son therewith. Wait, what? A very fine and beautiful garment from those which she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her. And she dressed Isaac her son therewith. Okay. And she put a turban upon his head, and she enclosed a precious stone in the top of the turban, and she gave them provision for the road. And they went forth, and Isaac went with his father Abraham, and some of their servants accompanied them to see them off the road. If God knows everything, would he not already know what one might pray for? The omniscience and omnipotence and omnipresence claim falls apart completely. Right? Like that's if you accept that God does divine interventions, right? Like what I believe is that we're like choosing timelines. Like there is a multitude of possibilities. One of them is the very best, one of them is the very worst, and there is a multitude in between. And every single choice that you make is making a choice between one of those, but that they are all existent, right? But you only choose consciousness to be the main character in one. Now, that's my personal interpretation of that. Uh, God sees all of these possibilities, but he doesn't really interfere with them unless you directly request some interference. And then it's got a lot to do with everybody else's free will, too. So, you get to create your own reality, and that is a real thing, right? Quantum mechanics is constantly verifying the observer effect, that the way that you observe it literally changes the way that it unfolds. And so that is true on the quantum level, but it is true throughout. Like you do bring into your life, consciously or unconsciously, the things that you focus your attention upon. Focusing that attention is the same as prayer if you are doing it correctly, right? Not, I want to be at $5,000, but I want to leave a life that's more abundant, is focus and intentionality as rather than requesting compensation, right? The intentionality of the set makes a difference, but setting your intentions in prayer is the same thing, right? God, I need help with this is the same as I want this to be better. Like, oh, I believe that there is a God, but he doesn't really get as concerned in the day to day, right? Regardless, you are having an experience, regardless, it will be part of the experience, and regardless, it will be used for the experience. And so, if you make the best decision all the way through, that's fine with him. And if you make the worst decision all the way through, that's fine with him as well. You are the one that's dealing with the consequences of those actions. Perception does control our reality. And so I don't believe in the chosen people narrative, right? You individually can align yourself for the best intentions, and that is the exact same as being chosen by God. But as a people, that's never going to happen. I know you will never get a people to align in such a way that they're all going in one direction at all. And the more people you get, the harder that is to do. It's really hard to get 3 people into accordance for one thing, much less for, like, all things. And Sarah went out with them, and she accompanied them upon the road to see them off. And they said to her, "Return to the tent." And when Sarah heard the words of her son Isaac, she wept bitterly. Yeah, see, she's a little bit too close to the kid. You shouldn't have had him away for a while now. And Abraham, her husband, wept with her, and their son wept with him. But of course, Abraham, like, I don't have any problems whatsoever with a man expressing feelings, whether that is grief or joy or just sadness, right? You are free to express how you need to express. But I'm not surprised, right? She is weeping because you are taking her son from her, not because you are leaving her. And he wept with her, and that is just showing empathy. And the son wept with them a great weeping, which is believable considering the text. Like, you can form too strong of an attachment with your children. I mean, Freud attacks that. He does it not quite correct, but he's got a point on a lot of things, right? And this may be an example of that, at least from this text. Now, this is not necessarily the same narrative as Genesis, but fairly close. And Abraham and they all wept. And Sarah caught hold of her son Isaac, and she held him in her arms, and she embraced him and continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, "Who knoweth if after this day I shall ever see thee again?" Woo-wee. And they still wept together. Yeah, if that ain't country, it'll hair lift the Pope, that's for sure. And they still wept together. Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and all those that accompanied them on the. And I mean, that is just the repeat of the pattern, right? Abraham married his sister. Like, that's literally in Genesis. She pretends to be his sister, but she really is, and it's his wife. And then we have several instances of that happening. So it's not outside of the bonds, right? They got to keep that bloodline pure. And all those who accompanied on the road wept with him. And Sarah afterward turned away from her son, weeping bitterly. And all her men servants and maidservants returned with her to the tent. And Abraham went with Isaac his son to bring him of an offering before the Lord, as he had commanded him. And Abraham took 2 of his young men with him, Ishmael the son of Hagar, and Eleazar his servant. So he brought his brother with him, and they went together with him. And whilst they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eleazar, "Now my father Abram is going with Isaac to bring him up for a burnt offering to the Lord, as he commanded him. Now when he returneth, he will give unto me all that he possesses, to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn, he is his firstborn." And Eleazar answered Ishmael, saying, "Surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou shouldst not inherit all the things he possesses. And to whom will he give all that he has with all his treasures? But unto me, his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him day and night, and has done all that he desired me. To me will he bequeath at his death all that he possesses." And whilst Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and of contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, "Art thou silly or brutish, that thou goest to do this thing this day to thine only son? For God gave thee a son in thy latter days, in thy old age. And wilt thou go and slaughter him this day because he committed no violence? And wilt thou cause the soul of thine only son to perish from the earth? Dost thou not know and understand that this thing cannot be from the Lord? For the Lord cannot do unto man such evil upon the earth to say to him, Go slaughter thy child." I absolutely agree. At any point, even as a test. And Abraham heard this and knew that it was the word of Satan who endeavored to draw him aside from the ways of the Lord. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of Satan, and Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. And Satan returned and came to Isaac, and he appeared unto Isaac in the figure of a young man, comely and well favored. And he approached Isaac and said unto him, "Dost thou know and understand that thy old silly father bringeth thee to the slaughter this day for naught? Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, for he is a silly old man, and let not thy precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth." And Isaac heard this and said unto Abraham, "Hast thou heard, my father, that which this man has spoken? Even thus has he spoken." And Abraham answered his son Isaac and said to him, "Take heed of him, and do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside this day from the commands of God." And Abraham still rebuked Satan, and Satan went from them. And seeing that he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them, and he went and passed before them in the road. And he transformed himself to a large brook of water in the road. And Abraham and Isaac and his two young men reached that place. And they saw a brook large and powerful as the mighty waters. And they entered the brook and passed through it, and the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks, and they were all terrified on account of the water. And whilst they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place, and he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son Isaac, "I know this place in which there was no brook nor water. Now therefore it is Satan who does all this to us, to draw us aside this day from the commands of God." And Abraham rebuked him and said unto him, "The Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, begone from us, for we go by the commands of God." And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place again became dry land as it was at first. And Abraham went with Isaac towards the place that God had told him. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance which God had told him of. And a pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from earth to heaven, and a cloud of glory upon the mountain. And the glory of the Lord was seen in the cloud. That would be electricity. And Abraham said to Isaac, "My son, dost thou see in that mountain which we perceive at a distance that which I see upon it?" And Isaac answered and said unto his father, "I see, and lo, a pillar of fire and a cloud, and the glory of the Lord is seen upon the cloud." And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before the Lord for a burnt offering. And Abraham said unto Eleazar and unto Ishmael his son, "Do you also see that which we see upon the mountain which is at a distance?" And they answered and said, "We see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth." And Abraham knew that they were not accepted before the Lord to go with him. And Abraham said to them, "Abide ye here with the ass, while I and Isaac my son will go up yonder mount and worship there before the Lord, and then return to you." And Eleazar and Ishmael remained in that place as Abraham had commanded. All right. How can they say with confidence that someone just happens to be Satan? That is a very good question. Anybody that disagrees with what you are trying to do, obviously, right? And it is interesting that Satan is trying to keep him from killing his kid. I mean, I've got a whole chapter in the book devoted just to this. Right? It's not the word of the Lord that comes, it is an entity, an angel of the Lord that comes to Abraham and tells him to take his child and to go up the mountain and to bind him and to kill him. And then another entity, another angel appears to him and says, "What are you doing? Stop. Use this goat instead." Right? That's from Genesis. Right? That's the story. That's the narrative. This is something completely different. Right? This has no real bearing upon the original story other than the people are the same and the intention's the same. Uh, when they get done with this, like this has got Isaac going, he volunteers the information, and God's like, "Oh, that's a great idea, right? Let's test the mettle of my man. I'm going to give him a word. I'm going to tell him a word, and he's going to go up this mountain and kill his kid." Well, I can tell you right now, right? If I was to do that, if I was to say, God told me to take this kid up the mountain and bind him up and cut out his heart, which was the procedure, I don't think that they would be forming a religion upon me, right? That is obviously schizophrenia at the best. It is an evil entity telling you to go kill your kid at midway, right? And it is an overt act of just malicious evil at worst. Like, there is no point of that narrative where it is faithful and true to take a child, bind them up, put them on an altar, and raise a knife to cut out their heart. There is no part of that that is good following the word of God at all. If God is telling you to kill your kid, seek help. That is not God. All right, what's the next one? Do you think it is coincidental that the term evil is a derivative of Eve, the first female God created, and who betrayed her man, the only one in existence? There's a lot that could be read into the story, right? I don't know the etymology of evil. It is very similar to Eve, I will grant that. Uh, she is the one attributed with taking the temptation, although I don't believe in that temptation. And so it's not to me at all, right? The entirety of the religion is patriarchal, super suppressive to anything remotely resembling feminine rights at all, right? You have a consequence for picking up a stick on the wrong day. You don't have a consequence for forcibly yourself upon a woman, right? If you get away with it, if it is just her out there, it is her fault for being out there. But if you get caught, the only penalty is that you have to pay her father and then marry her, right? There is no part of that is human, right? That is a bestial understanding of anything. There is no way that that is the law of God. There is no way that God tells you to go and commit an act of violence upon anyone for no reason whatsoever. You are allowed to defend yourself in every situation. If there is tyranny, even, you are allowed to protect yourself from tyranny because that is an oppression of your free will. But there is no instance ever at any point where God is going to tell you to sacrifice a child. And if so, it's an evil God. Was God told me the ultimate get out of jail card back then. It is. It was. Look at the Salem witch trials, right? That is fairly recent. And I mean, we could do even more, right? Jonestown, right? Manson. Like God told me to do these things, therefore it's fine. Right. And now society has not comported with that for the most part, but they did, right? That was evident in Salem. Uh, how many witches died in Salem? Do you know? I can tell you. Zero. Zero witches died in Salem. There was none. They killed innocent women and men, but mostly women. I mean, there were no witches that they killed. Right? It was a societal breakdown because God told somebody that it was a sin. And so, yeah, it was the ultimate get out of jail card. Original sin. Judaism credits the mother with being the anchor to being credited as a Jew. That seems more matriarchal. That is true. And evidence has proven fairly recently that females had a more significant role in the temple than has been traditionally attributed to it. Right. So There are a lot of consistency problems when trying to apply Judaism through time. Then it really does come down to that because there's not a whole lot of reason to believe that there was a fully fleshed existent religion of Judaism prior to the Babylonian exile. There's significant reason to believe that it was fabricated to be placed upon the people who were already existent in the land after the exile. And so there are some chronology problems there that are significant. And so some of the more paternalistic things may be that it is retro written so that it is justified going forward. But that's one of those things that is forever going to be in speculation because the oldest existent scrolls and things that we have is concurrent pretty close to what we currently have. And so we don't have anything that significantly deviates in a way that would suggest that they actually had a better view of women. Although there is reason to believe that they were participating in the temple during the Roman era, which is definitely a deviation from anything that was the prior understanding of that. Is there an established method of verifying or substantiating the claim of God intervening? Wolf told me to kill sheep, etc. It's going to be very difficult, right? Like you can do it on an internal, consistent level. That is what I did. That is what I talk about in the book, right? I hear the intuition. You need to start walking. You need to quit smoking. You need to take this medicine. You need to do this thing. And then I take that action. And then the result from that action is immediately beneficial, right? Now, that can just be intuition, that can be the voice of God. That is an argument, right? I can never verify outside of myself that it was the voice of God. Period. The end, right? It is an experience, and you cannot give an experience, you can only relay one. And it is up to the person receiving it whether they choose to believe that or not. You can put it to experience, right? You can test my theory. If you hear the voice telling you to do the thing and you listen to the voice, does it lead to good fruit? That's what I recommend, right? You hear both voices though. So one of them is going to tell you, no, just sit on the couch. And one is going to tell you, you need to get up and get exercise, right? One of them is going to tell you, get an extra scoop of ice cream. One of them is going to tell you, yeah, that's enough, right? You get to choose. Both of those are the voice of the Lord. And so you can't really give the credit to the Lord necessarily for that, right? He is tempting you both ways. Well, does it not seem a stretch that God would perform instruction to one individual without having any witnesses? Yes, right. And that is again another thing that is directly related to me, right? I have relayed my instructions. And so that I feel like was part of getting them, right? I asked for healing during prayer and it was a no, right? It was a you take these actions and heal yourself, and this is how you can do it, right? And part of that was a directly revelatory experience of sudden intuitional knowledge coming from nowheres. That is part of it. The way that I move the energy through the chakras, I didn't get that from somewheres. I found the corroborating evidence after I was already doing it. That to me is divine. That is divine instruction, but if it is true, if it is real, then it is repeatable and it is not necessarily restricted to me. So if you do the things that I say in the manner that I say, you should receive fairly similar results, right? That is a reasonable expectation for a test of faith. I believe that it is divine instruction that has instructed me in how to change my life into a better one. Uh, and part of that has absolutely been a supernatural experience that I can never relay to anyone, right? I can never give it to you. I can relay it to you, but I can never directly give you the experience that I went through. You have to find it for yourself. Is it possible that the power of our minds facilitated that healing alone? Yes, absolutely it is. I don't deny that either. I believe that it is divine because I believe in the divine, right? Because of the supernatural experiences that I've had. If somebody who does not believe in the divine does the procedures and it works for them, it may be proof that there is no divine, right? Now, it's going to be really hard to prove. Either way on that, it is again one of those experiential things, and why nobody should stand on, well, I did this, so that makes me better than you, right? I believe that I personally have healed myself in 4 ways, right? My throat, my shoulder, my back, and my leg. Those are fairly objectively observable, right? There was a cyst on my vocal cords. I could not speak across the room for a year and a half, 2 years. That was a thing. And that changed directly from decisions and energy manipulations. Like to me, that was no separation. The cyst was gone overnight. It took a while for the vocal cords to repair to where I can talk like this, but the cyst disappeared the day I made a decision, like literally that day. That can be psychosomatic, that can be obedience. It can go either way. And so you have to be open, even in faith, right? Faith is not blindly believing with no reason whatsoever. That is hope, right? It is faith is if I take the next step that I am getting instructions on, then that will bear out in the way that it should. That is faith. And so stepping out in faith is more about trusting the process. And that is a secular way of looking at it. But it is entirely possible that the placebo effect took effect. Uh, Less so for me, right? Because some of this stuff is not going to be psychosomatic, right? You can make the argument that, like, my entire left side of my body had tremors for 12 years, like fully uncontrollable, spontaneous, go off on its own. And you can make the argument that that was psychosomatic. But I have, I assume still, uh, 7 bulges and 6 herniations, 3 spinal impingements, and those don't cause me any problems anymore. So I have to assume that the effects have borne out in a way that is not entirely psychosomatic. And that is just an assumption. I have not went and had the MRI to check again the spinal alignment. Uh, but all of the experienced things from that are gone, right? I used to wake up 7, 8 on the pain scale every single day. Every single day, I made a decision not to jiggle a spoon in my eye socket. Every single day. I don't have that at all, right? I wake up, I'm at a 0 or a 1 tops. And that is not psychosomatic to me. Hopefully that was a little bit enlightening. And I mean, I do talk about these things quite extensively, so I have no problem discussing this stuff. Okay. Uh, and Eleazar and Ishmael remained in that place as Abraham had commanded. And Abraham took wood for a burnt offering and placed it upon his son Isaac. And he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And when they were going along, Isaac said to his father, "Behold, I see here the fire and wood. And where then is the lamb that is to be burnt offering before the Lord?" And Abraham answered his son Isaac, saying, "The Lord has made choice of thee, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb." And Isaac said unto his father, "I will do all that the Lord spoke to thee with joy and cheerfulness at heart." And Abraham again said unto Isaac his son, "Is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this which is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray thee. O my son, conceal it not from me." And Isaac answered his father, Abraham, and said unto him, "O my father, as the Lord liveth and thy soul liveth, there is nothing in my heart that causeth me to deviate either the left or the right from the word that he has spoken to thee. Neither limb nor muscle has moved nor stirred at this, nor is there in my heart any thought or evil counsel concerning this. But I am of joyful and cheerful heart in this matter, and I say, Blessed is the Lord who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him." And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac. And they went on and came together to that place that the Lord had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place, and Abraham was weeping. And Isaac took the stones and mortar until they finished building the altar. They carried mortar up with them. That's interesting, particularly since, right, I am fairly certain that Abraham specifically was told to build an altar not out of cut stones or joins. And Abraham took the wood and placed it on in order upon the altar which he had built. And he took his son Isaac and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, and slay him for a burnt offering before the Lord. And Isaac said to his father, Bind me securely, and then place me upon the altar, lest I should turn and move, and break loose from the force of the knife upon my flesh, and thereof profane the burnt offering. And Abraham did so. And Isaac still said to his father, O my father, when thou hast slain me and burnt me for an offering, take with thee that which will remain of my ashes to bring to Sarah my mother, and say to her, This is the sweet smelling savor of Isaac. But do not tell her this if she should sit near a well or upon any high place, lest she should cast her soul after me and die. And Abraham heard the words of Isaac, and he lifted up his voice, and he wept when Isaac spake these words. And Abraham's tears gushed out down upon Isaac his son, and Isaac wept bitterly. And he said to his father, Hasten now, O my father, and do with me the will of the Lord our God as he has commanded thee. And the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this thing which the Lord had commanded them. But the eye wept bitterly, whilst the heart rejoiced. And Abraham bound his son Isaac, and placed him on the altar in the wood. And Isaac stretched forth his neck upon the altar before his father, and Abraham stretched forth his hand to take the knife to slay his son, as a burnt offering before the Lord. At that time the angels of mercy came before the Lord, and spake to him concerning Isaac, saying, it's not God himself, right? God himself told him to go up the mountain. Now it is an angel coming, say, Don't. That is two entities. That still goes into my entire theory. O Lord, thou art a merciful and compassionate king over all thou hast created in heaven and in earth, and thou supportest them all. Give therefore ransom and redemption instead of thy servant Isaac, and pity and have compassion upon Abraham and Isaac his son, who are this day performing thy commands. Hast thou seen, O Lord, how Isaac the son of Abraham thy servant is bound down to the slaughter like an animal? Now therefore let thy pity be roused for them, O Lord. And at that time the Lord appeared unto Abram and called to him from heaven. So he does appear to him, okay. And said unto him, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything upon him unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God in performing this act, and in not withholding thy son, thine only son, from me. It's not his only son. He's got another one right at the bottom of the mountain, his firstborn even. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, a ram was caught in a thicket by his horns. That was the ram which the Lord God had created in the earth in the day that he made heaven and earth. The ram that he created on the day when he did that, right? The ram, he didn't die in the flood. He made it on the ark. Is that what happened? He made it on the ark. He made it through the flood. He survived. Was it supernatural intervention? God just picked him up like Enoch and then popped him down like a chess piece? Is that what happened? For the Lord had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Isaac. I found that I had knots in my back for decades that I thought were from an injury, but as soon as my wife left me, the stress went with her, and the back pain went away and has not returned. Anxiety does suck, and psychosomatic things are real. That is absolutely a thing too. Like people will have those problems and recover from them all of the time. So, yeah. Like if it was just it feels bad, that would be one thing. If it wasn't, like I've got an MRI, right? Like I've literally seen it going, "Ugh." So I know where the pain came from. And now that it's gone, like I don't have the money, honestly, to go. My insurance is absolute ass. And so I don't have the money to go and have an MRI done just to do it. Uh, and so I can't go and confirm it, but like it really is a lot different. Not what you would expect from the MRI results at all, and that's with 0 surgery. And this ram was advancing to Abraham when Satan caught hold of him and entangled his horns in the thicket, that he might not advance to Abraham, in order that Abraham might slay his son. Because Satan is fully able to thwart the will of God. And Abraham, seeing the ram advancing to him, and Satan withholding him, fetched him and brought him before the altar. And he loosened his son Isaac from his binding, and he put the ram in his stead. And Abraham killed the ram upon the altar and brought it up as an offering in the place of his son Isaac. And Abraham sprinkled some of the blood of the ram upon the altar, and he exclaimed and said, "This is in the place of my son, and may this be considered this day as the blood of my son before the Lord." And all that Abraham did on this occasion by the altar, he would exclaim and say, "This is in the room of my son, and may it this day be considered before the Lord in the place of my son." And Abraham finished the whole of the service by the altar. And the service was accepted before the Lord, and was accounted as if it had been Isaac. And the Lord blessed Abraham and his seed on that day. So he provided his own sacrifice. And Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek. And Abraham was yet engaged in the burnt offering before the Lord. And he said unto her, "Dost thou not know all the work that Abraham has made with thine only son this day? But he took Isaac and built an altar and killed him, and brought him up as a sacrifice upon the altar. And Isaac cried and wept before his father, but he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion over him." And Satan repeated these words, and he went away from her. And Sarah heard all the words of Satan, and she imagined him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men who had been with her son, and had come to told her these things. And Sarah lifted up her voice and wept and cried out bitterly on account of her son. And she threw herself upon the ground, and she cast dust upon her head. And she said, "O my son, Isaac, my son, oh, that I had this day died instead of thee." And she continued to weep and said, "It grieves me for thee, O my son Isaac. Oh, that I had died in this day in thy stead." And she continued to weep and said, "It grieves me for thee, after that I have reared thee, and have brought thee up, and now my joy is turned into mourning over thee, that I that had a longing for thee, and cried and prayed to God till I bare thee at 90 years old. And now thou hast served this day for the knife and the fire to be made an offering. But I console myself with thee, my son, in its being the word of the Lord, for thou didst perform the command of God. For who can transgress the word of our God, in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? Who indeed? Satan. Satan can. Thou art just, O Lord our God, for all thy works are good and righteous. And I also am rejoiced with thy word, which thou didst command. And whilst mine eye weepeth bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as stone. She afterward rose up and went about making inquiries until she came to Hebron, and she inquired of all those whom she met walking in the road, and no one could tell her what had happened to her son. And she came with her maidservants and men servants to Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron, and she asked concerning her son, and she remained there while she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. They went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, and they could not find him. And they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man. And he came and stood before her, and he said unto her, "I spoke falsely unto thee, for Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead." And when she heard the words, her joy was so exceedingly violent on account of her son, that her soul went out through joy. She died, and was gathered to her people. Well, that is an interesting change of the narrative from Genesis. And when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Isaac to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah and could not find her, and he made inquiries concerning her, and they said unto him, "She went as far as Hebron to seek you both where you had gone," and thus was she informed. And Abraham and Isaac went with her to Hebron, and when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face and wept over her, and he said, "O my mother, how hast thou left me, and where hast thou gone? Oh, how hast thou left me?" And Abraham and Isaac wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them on account of Sarah, and they mourned over her a great and heavy mourning. And that is going to bring us to the end of today's reading. Hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult series of topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I do have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something that I apologize for. There is an awful lot wrong with this particular narrative, right? And it in complete separation from the awful lot that is wrong with the Genesis narrative. This is completely different telling of the story with additional details that didn't come from anywhere is verifiable that I know of. And so it is speculative at best, right? Deceitful, probably, and almost certainly an intentional apologetic written to be that apologetic. Because many of the things that is in this particular part I addressed in my book, right? The the f- the two entities is a problem, right? Taking your child up the mountain to kill him. That's a whole separate problem, but still a problem. The entities fighting each other. That's a problem, and that's a repeated pattern. This is significantly different, right? In the biblical narrative, Isaac never again speaks to Abraham, right? When he is seen again, he is blind, right? Trauma, trauma does a lot of things. Anxiety is real. And Isaac would have been facing a great deal of anxiety if he existed, but there's no real reason to believe that he ever did, right? This is at best an amalgamation of stories. And as such, it should be read as speculative, as possibilities, but not as literal fact. And it definitely should not be used as a reference for any real understanding of anything. Um, if you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that I say. If you put it in the box and it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing, hit me with the super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of any of the books. I am also available for consultation through the links provided down below. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been pittstake. Peace.